There's nearly 500 anti-LGBT bills in the United States right now. All of these affect trans people, and the majority of them specifically target us, making this the biggest attack we've faced in over 100 years. But I don't think people realize how bad this actually is. If you look at the number of anti-trans bills introduced over the last few years, with 19 bills in 2018, 25 bills in 2019, 60 bills in 2020, 131 bills in 2021, and 155 bills as of October 2022, you can see how just out of control things have gotten. And now, only 3 months in to 2023, we have 480 bills as of the time of recording this. No doubt will be more by the time this goes up, because every time I refresh this site as I work on this video, the number goes up. So if we were to take our current number of bills and plug it into this chart, it would already be triple the height of the stack from last year. And while these bills have always been a baseless government overstep coming from fear-mongering and misinformation, believe it or not, they are getting worse. We're seeing trans healthcare bans for adults. Like, they're saying it should be illegal for me to continue the hormone replacement therapy that I've been doing for 9 years. They're ramping up and actually passing bathroom bills with harsh criminal penalties, meaning there are places that if I need to go to the restroom, I could go to jail for not using the women's room. And there are more and more states trying to criminalize the parents of trans minors as child abusers, meaning these kids, these trans kids, would be taken from their parents, forced to detransition, right? Like having their whole life ripped out from under them and their identity stripped away, put into an already underfunded and overstretched government system where they are left to fend for themselves. So if it sounds fucking insane, that's because it is. And while the worst of these bills hopefully won't pass into law, they don't have to. That's not the point. Their existence alone is harmful to trans people because they make other bills not look so bad in comparison. For example, these bathroom bills that are currently passing are way worse than the 2016 North Carolina bill that caused all the uproar and was protested and never went through. And then you have situations like the healthcare ban where it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't ban adults from transition, but we're going to go ahead and ban minors because that just seems more reasonable. These bills also stoke fear by framing us as predators and by just overloading the news, the courts, everywhere, just continuing to force this conversation and force us to be on the defensive with all these accusations. You know, it makes the people who don't know any better believe that there is some sort of problem and is some sort of threat that they need to be taken care of. And these bills and their efforts embolden transphobia. You know, it gives people a sense of justification for hating trans people. And there has been a measurable increase in transphobia since then. For example, after the Don't Say Gay bill passed in Florida, it was recorded that anti-LGBT hate speech rose by 400% on social media. A very sharp uptick immediately after. And while they're throwing all these bills out there and seeing what sticks, conservatives are actively testing the boundaries on seeing how much they can restrict our lives, how many of our rights they can take away, how much they can oppress us and get away with the clear and explicit goal of making it impossible for us to exist.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
Conservatives cheer at the idea of us being eradicated. I mean, the mask has been off for years, but now they are literally saying the quiet part out loud. They no longer have to imply it, they are broadcasting it and being met with applause. And then just to really hammer it home how far detached from reality these people are, how their lies are not just excused, but encouraged. It's the standard. Michael Knowles, this CPAC speaker, one of many to speak out against trans people, turns around and denies what he said on live television. The words we all just heard coming from his mouth.
CPAC speaker calls for transgender people to be eradicated. Did I say that? I don't remember saying that. Did I? Hold on, let me look through my speech. Oh, of course I never said that.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
The idea that I or anybody else called for trans people to be eradicated, obviously a total lie.
So now he's trying to argue semantics, saying, oh, well, technically, I didn't say we should eradicate transgender people. I said we should eradicate transgenderism. So to call me transphobic is slander. Since we're being technical, I went ahead and Googled transgenderism, which by the way is almost exclusively used by anti-trans groups to dehumanize us, like Michael Knowles is using it here, or you might see it in a medical context, like in the DSM, which says transgenderism refers to the broad spectrum of people who transiently or persistently identify with a gender different from their natal sex. So transgenderism describes transgender people. Incredible. Are you shocked?
Maybe these people just don't understand the basic meaning of words.
And Wiktionary simply says transgenderism is the state of being transgender. Now guess what kind of people that applies to. So if you ban being transgender, you ban transgender people. And that's exactly what these bills are meant to do.
Could they really be this stupid?
And the lawmakers who are deciding on our rights are, in many cases, just as fucked as the bigots they're appealing to. The next clip is from a hearing on an anti-trans healthcare bill in Arkansas, which is where I'm from. So I wonder what my representatives think about me in my community. Surely they will listen in good faith, as a doctor, who also happens to be a trans woman, shares her expertise. She seems like someone who is uniquely positioned to have a very informed understanding and opinion on this topic. So let's see how that goes.
You said that you're a trans woman.
I trans female, yes, ma'am, sir.
Do you have a penis?
Yeah, okay. Right. Imagine being like, all right, State Senator Matt McKee, in order to move forward, I just need to know how big is your penis? So go ahead and say when. Yep, anytime. Just if we're getting close, surely, no? That's okay, man. We can't all be hanging pinky like me. Matt McKee thinks it's fine to talk to trans people like that. In fact, he blames his demeaning and inappropriate behavior on the trans woman he's talking to.
That's horrible.
You're the one that brought that into the discussion.
I
You're the one that
never
brought that
said
into
anything
discussion.
about genitalia.
Oh, it has
that-
everything to do with genitalia.
Reducing trans people to their genitalia and equating someone's entire identity and experience to what's in their pants is bad. And having so little respect and human decency for trans people that you're completely comfortable doing that at your job as a state senator in a televised public hearing. Hot take, but I don't think this guy should be in charge of what rights we get to have.
Oh, it has everything to do with genitalia.
The level of trans awareness amongst conservative politicians ranges from knowing nothing about us, which is actually the best case scenario with these people, all the way to just straight up harassing a trans woman in front of everyone, apparently. And actually, past that, you have people like Robert Foster, who was a Mississippi House rep that ran for governor and lost, LMAO, get wrecked, who says we should be lined up against a wall in front of a firing squad and sent to an early judgment. Yeah, that's not a leak of a private text conversation. That's a tweet posted to the public by a Republican official. I don't know. I just can't help but feel like these lawmakers aren't there to do their jobs as elected officials. Something tells me they're not really trying to make informed decisions about what's best for the people they're supposed to serve and represent. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm getting a vibe. I want to show you some clips from another hearing in Arkansas on what would become a historic anti-trans bill. And I've put together highlights from some of the many medical professionals that testified against it. And I really want you to listen to what they have to say, because at the end, I'm going to show you how the fucking Senator Bart Hester decided to respond.
I'm Courtney Frierson, a social worker with 13 years experience providing therapy to transgender community in Little Rock. This bill is unnecessary because it aims to stop something that does not actually happen. There is no legitimate medical professional in Arkansas engaging in experimentation. Let physicians do their jobs informed by accurate medical research backed by 42 years of WPATH experience. This bill,
Excuse me
if
for
passed,
interrupting. I'm
is
sorry.
state-sanctioned violence against trans people. Please
Thank
vote
you
no.
so much. I'm here today representing the Arkansas chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. To the transgender youth of Arkansas, although this bill unfortunately reinforces the discrimination and hurtful messaging you so often get in society, please know that many pediatricians and the AAP stand with you and against this legislation.
I come today as a mother, as an Arkansan, and as a physician provider for pediatric and adolescent transgender and gender diverse patients. Trans and gender nonconforming youth are aware of the differences in their gender at a young age. There's an increased rate of depression, anxiety, self-harm, eating disorders, and most significantly suicide compared to their cisgender peers. And this is not because they are trans, but instead multifactorial and because of the society that they live in. And we know that part of these factors that are a lack of access to healthcare providers like myself. Transgender and gender diverse youth deserve every bit of respect, dignity, and care their cisgender peers are afforded. And their parents and caregivers deserve the same amount of autonomy to choose what is right for their child as the parents of cisgender children.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Transgender teens and adults are the most informed population I've ever worked with. The teens I work with are excited to come to clinic, and they've already done a lot of research for years. However, no matter how well informed they are, something that you might know is that teens don't get to decide if they start cross-sex hormones under 18. Not even their parents get to decide. It is a team approach. They have a psychological evaluation by a mental health professional. They meet the nurse, doctor, social worker, and chaplain. If they're not in therapy, they're given supports to get a therapist that understands gender identity. Within 6 months, they also meet with a psychologist who uses 5 to 6 research-based tools to help them really understand their gender identity and their goals and hopes for their future.
I'm Dr. Michelle Hutchison, MD, PhD. I represent myself and the almost 200 children that I have treated here in Little Rock for transgender. No prepared remarks. I just want to speak from the heart for these kids who really are the bravest, brightest, type A, high-achieving, amazing children. I mean, I just can't go on enough about them. They're just amazing kids, okay? And they know who they are, and they know who they are from a very young age. There are, ma'am, multiple published standards of care for the treatment of these children. There are multiple guidelines for the treatments of these children. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychiatric Association, the Pediatric Endocrine Society, the Endocrine Society, not to mention dozens of European pediatric and adult published guidelines. Many, many, many published guidelines, and we follow those guidelines to the letter because we care about these children and we want to keep them alive and healthy, not just in childhood, but after 18 as well. We've already had multiple children just after this bill passed the House. These kids heard about it. I've had multiple kids in our emergency room because of an attempted suicide. Just in the last week, multiple. I've had multiple children. Do you know how many phone calls I've had to field in the last week of children calling me saying, Dr. Hutchison, if this happens, I'm going to kill myself. Multiple. So I guarantee you, if this bill passes, children will die. And I will call you guys every single time one does.
All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Boom. Children will die, and I will call you guys every single time one does. Absolutely powerful stuff from these doctors, and those were just some highlights. Many of them went into detail explaining the transition process, debunking the myths, and citing the studies and sharing the published medical research with the senators. But Bart Hester still had one pressing question that he really thought was going to be his gotcha moment, apparently. So take a look at this 4D chess bombshell that he decided to drop on these doctors.
Do you think if parents had a child, so they had a boy and they wish it was a girl, that at a year old or 2 years old they could have start these blockers or have a physical change for the child? Do you think that would be appropriate?
No. I think that 1 and 2 year olds developmentally generally do not have an understanding of what gender is at all.
Okay, so I think
Typical
I think that's my point. You agree that there's an age that's not appropriate. I also agree that there's an age that's not appropriate. We're just now debating on what age is appropriate. So you're somewhere around 4 and I'm somewhere around 18.
I just wonder if it took you until you were 18 to understand your gender identity as male, because I kind of wonder if that was true.
I think you agree, as I do, that there's a day that you don't think is appropriate.
I don't think I agree with you on very much. Thank you.
Oh my God, what a legend. Honestly, these people are so much more patient than I would have been. I mean, it's like saying, do you think a dentist should be allowed to remove all of a child's teeth and replace them with Legos? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody's forcefully transitioning a baby. That doesn't happen. Nobody wants that to happen. Nobody's saying it should happen. And they have patiently explained how the entire process works. And you apparently did not listen to anything that was said. And this hearing also included a really powerful testimony from a trans man. So I want to show you that now and then talk about the aftermath of this and the impact that it had.
When I was 8 years old, Senator, I told my parents that God had made a big mistake. To be fair to my parents, the year was 1963. Their reaction was to send me to ballet lessons and put me in more dresses. I tried very hard to conform to who I wasn't, but by the age of 22, I couldn't take it anymore. I can't describe to you the pain a transgender person goes through having to live in the wrong body. At 22, I stepped in front of a dump truck just hoping that God would end it all. Luckily, he failed. I eventually got married, had 2 children, and when they were grown, they came to me one day and said, and I never said anything to anyone else since then, they said, "Mom, if you want to transition, we fully support you." So at the age of 55, I came out. And I discovered that God didn't make a mistake. God made me the way I am so that I can understand and help and mentor these kids, because I don't want any of them to ever go through what I did. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So after many incredible testimonies against this bill and even a veto from the governor, it still went on to be the first anti-trans healthcare bill in the United States to pass into law. Now, there are some awesome groups like Intransitive, for example, here in Arkansas, that organized to fight back against the anti-trans legislation, and that's critical right now. As cliche as it sounds, we have to come together. We can't let them isolate us, and we have to be visible. We can't let them continue to dehumanize us. Like, we have to take back the narrative and show that we are just people trying to exist. So the folks who speak out at these hearings, like, honestly, bravo for taking that kind of heat. It is very important what they're doing to help shift the public perception of us, even though really the impact they should be making, which is on the politicians who are supposed to be absorbing that information, is never going to happen. Because the politicians aren't there to actually listen to anyone and learn anything. So to them, it doesn't matter how many doctors or psychiatrists come forward with the facts on this evidence-based medical care, or how many heartfelt testimonies they get from trans people and their families, or like my personal favorite, people calling them out on the hypocrisy of them saying they're trying to protect children, but actually using their power to protect known child abusers and rapists like they did for the Duggars here in Arkansas. And we're going to end this with an absolute banger, you guys. Last month, there was a hearing on the current anti-trans bathroom bill that would criminalize trans people for being in a bathroom with a minor present, and a member of Intransitive, Rumba, who is just my fucking hero, called these senators out, and you'll see the chaos that ensues.
If the purpose of this is to protect children even farther, I hope that you take a step to that, and this bill is not that. There are no cases of transgender people harming children in bathrooms, but there are multiple cases of Baptist pastors using their powers to assault children. Considering that the majority of you all in this committee are Baptists and you want to protect children, I would urge you to do some work around ending sexual violence against children at the hands of their fathers, grandfathers, uncles, and pastors. The next place to look is the Family Research Council, who testified in supporting this bill, considering they have several members accused of sexual assault, starting with Josh Duggar from Arkansas, though you might want to leave Senator Hester out of those conversations, since he advocated to fire the police chief who released the documents that led to the arrest and conviction of Josh Duggar, accused of sexually assaulting 5 girls.
Yup, that's our boy Senator Bart Hester from earlier, called out for protecting Josh Duggar, of fucking 66 kids and counting, who was one of multiple members of the Family Research Council with sexual assault charges. The group that is pushing this bill to protect children is riddled with men who assault children. I'm shocked. And, well, folks were not happy they brought that up.
Point of order. I would ask that the person testifying speak to the bill, and he also specifically called out a member by name that has nothing to do with this piece of legislation.
Yeah, if you would make note of that and stay to the subject matter.
Well, I'd like to respond to the point of order made by Senator Gilmore. This is a citizen of Arkansas that's coming to testify. He's given his position, and I don't think it's inappropriate what he has discussed so far. And whether he calls a name out, he's given free speech concerning his opinion on this bill. And there should not be a point of order that would restrict him from saying what he has to say.
Senator, if I may respond, I didn't ask him to restrict. I asked him to speak to the bill.
And I think he's speaking to the bill. I'm understanding what he's saying.
Okay, all right, let's hold it down.
Hell yeah, Senator Flowers, and hell yeah, Roomba. Honestly, they came with receipts and their whole testimony was fire, but I'm going to stop it here because I feel like this really encapsulates what I'm trying to show y'all with where these politicians lie, where these Republican conservative politicians have their priorities. They don't care about doing what's right or what's good for people. They only care about playing for the red team. And the red team's current game plan is to stoke a culture war. Because when solving literally any issue is woke, they don't have to do anything. They can just sit there and cash their checks from the giant corporations that they're letting destroy everything, and then turn around and blame minorities for all the country's problems. I mean, really, over 400, nearly 500 anti-trans bills in 3 months. This is all they're doing. While the economy is crumbling, there's a healthcare crisis, and of course a climate emergency. The world is literally fucking burning, and Republicans are doing this. This is what they're doing. This is all that they're doing. And the worst part is that it's working. And I just want to make it clear that the reason we've seen this huge wave of anti-trans legislation right after the reversal of Roe v. Wade is because conservatives want to mobilize those single-issue voters under the guise of protecting children. Though trans people are not hurting children, we are just people trying to exist, and these bills make it harder and harder for us to do that. I'm over it. Trans people and allies, it's important that we are visible and vocal about this. I know it might not seem like a lot, but just sharing your opinion and speaking up against this can help to change people's minds, and it can go a long way. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. I know the effects of all this can be felt in many areas. I, for one, am receiving more hate than I ever have, and that's fine. I mean, I'm used to it. There have definitely been waves of it in the past, but as an ongoing thing, it's a lot, it'll wear you down. Like, just to put things into perspective, I'm getting more hate comments on videos with under 50K views than I've gotten in the past on videos with nearly 1 million views. And I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. I always jokingly say, like, you couldn't hurt my feelings if you tried. I've already heard it all. I've seen it all. But I mean, these comments weren't lying. They do got hands. But yeah, everything's just crazy right now. Take care of yourselves. All right.